Welcome to the final episode of the Perry Thomas Show. I'm your host and your voice of Fighting Tiger football, Collin Sheffield. Alongside me, the head coach, Coach Perry Thomas. Coach Thomas, it was a tough game. It was some brutal conditions. The wind was crazy. The rain starting to come down a little bit every now and again, but just a tough fought loss in Williamsburg.
Yeah, I was proud of our guys. You know, we showed up and competed against a good football team. The conditions really didn't affect us much, and you know, it did a little bit on kicking, making decisions on how you want to kick the ball and so forth. But I thought our guys showed up and played, and you know, we just got beat by a team that was still a little bit better than us. You can go in and find a few plays that if they flip, maybe things change. But I was very proud of our guys. You know, we went into this game with already a young team, but a lot of injuries. You know, we had 15 first or second team guys that couldn't play because of injuries. And you think about that, you think about any team in the country, I don't care if you're Georgia, Alabama, the best teams in the country, you take 15 of their players off of that roster that are contributors on Saturdays, they're going to struggle. And, you know, we had 15 out for injuries, for various injuries. And, you know, that's something that we have to address on, you know, what's happening there. But at the same time, I thought our guys stood in there, guys that hadn't played much, guys that were called on to play. You saw two running backs have to go out there, Cameron Robinson and then Jaden Brown, who was a defensive back, you know, go out there and have to compete. And I thought our guys stood in there and competed. And, you know, we threw a quick pick six, and we had a kickoff return, and, you know, that's the difference in the game.
It was a rough start. You mentioned the pick six, and you go down 14-0, but the adjustment was beautiful. They came back out, started stringing together very good drives.
Right.
The defense started playing the way that it usually had, getting good stops and being able to force some big, you know, 3-and-outs, 4-and-outs, and then before you know it, you're right back into the ball game at the half, 14-14, but then just a little bit of a sluggish start out of the half kind of made the difference.
Well, I think once again, you're coming out there with young guys and a depleted roster. And, you know, it's still going to come down to man. And sometimes that other guy, especially when you're putting backups in at third teamers in some situations, is just a little bit better. You know, there's a reason you're a third teamer, right? And there's a reason that other guy's a starter or a second teamer. So I think at the beginning of the second half, you know, they kind of showed a little bit. We was able to settle, though. And once we settled down and make some adjustments, we was able to overcome some things, and, you know, our substitute patterns got going a little bit, and it got competitive again. But, you know, I wasn't surprised. I thought they would come out in the second half and try to run it at us a little bit and, you know, take advantage of a box that's very depleted because of injuries. After that initial drive, though, things began to settle again for us. I think they had another big pass in that half or so. They got a score, but, you know, after that drive, things settled, and I thought we came out and responded to it well.
We'll take a look at some of the big players in that ball game and some of their stats. Jagger Gillis threw for 34 for 44, 388 yards, a touchdown, 3 interceptions, and he rushed for 2 touchdowns.
Right.
Pope was 66 yards and a touchdown, and Nerese with 7 tackles, a tackle for loss, and a sack. And Gillis, you know, minus the fact of the interceptions, you know, you can talk about that all day long. That's going to happen. But when he goes out there, I really enjoyed the way he rushed the ball and really put his body out there. Just big physical quarterback going out there and competing.
Yeah, I thought he had a good game. You know, he threw the ball 44 times as a true freshman. And people forget that. You know, he's a true freshman. You throw the ball 44 times, you're going to throw some picks. And the picks aren't always the quarterback's fault. But you're going to throw some picks, and I thought he threw the ball really well, though. We got in a lot of empty sets and threw some controlled passing game stuff. And, you know, he ran the ball in there well. He's a big, strong, physical quarterback. He needs to learn how to get down a little bit more to protect himself. But I thought he had a good game. You know, the pick six on the screen, you know, that's the one people would think of because that's a separator in the game. But, you know, that stuff's going to happen, and it's just part of football. thought he had a good game. It was great to see Tim Pope get a touchdown. I think he's going to be a dandy for us. He's a true freshman that has had a really good year as a freshman, and I think he'll have a great off season and come back and do some really good things for us also offensively.
This Tiger team defensively looked good against an offense. It's not really a high-powered offense, but they held them right in check when they needed to, getting big stops, and even when they were starting to move down the field, forcing a few mistakes that you don't usually see from the Cumberland's team. They are very low on penalties all season, and they really kind of racked them up there.
Yeah, I thought defensively we had a good game plan, and be honest with you, the defensively we gave up the one big pass. And other than that, they had to earn their stuff. They had to earn the other 2 scores they got against us there. So I was really pleased with our defensive effort. I thought we stopped the run better than I thought we could in our box. I thought we could compete, but we had a lot of guys out in that box, and we had to depend on some guys making some plays. And Coach had to do Coach Burnett and those guys had to do some unique things to get us in position to make some plays. And I thought we did a good job against them all night long, and we took away things they wanted to do. End of the day, it comes down to a kickoff return, a pick 6. Otherwise you're looking at a tie game. There's so many plays in that game that could turn the tide, though. We had the block punt or the fumbled punt by the punter. That if we scoop and score, now all of a sudden it's a different ball game because you don't throw the interception in the end zone. Yeah. So just little things like that make a big difference in the game.
If you look at some of the stats too, it's really not telling of the ball game because the Tigers' offense looks to far outpace them, minus the rushing yards. It's a little bit different, 8 rushing yards, but still 2 rushing touchdowns from Gillis, but over 400 yards of offense, and they only had 200, but 14 points is the difference, and like you mentioned, just comes down to special teams. And we talked about how important that was on the radio. A lot of people kind of disregard special teams a lot of times, but sometimes that can be the difference.
Well, it can be, no doubt. It's the difference for us at Lindsey Wilson, and it's the difference the other day. And we've had good special teams play most of the year. It's just that sometimes you give up a coverage, and one of the things that people don't realize is that when you take 15 guys out of that unit, that's also taking 15 guys off a kicking game. So now you got guys on kickoff and punt that are doing things they haven't done much of all year. You're always getting your 1s and 2s ready, but very rare you're working with your 3s and 4s. And now they still got to go down there and cover that kick. We thought the wind would be at our advantage some, even though it was in our face. We thought it would hang the ball up and we'd be able to cover. And unfortunately, the wind doesn't blow hard right there when we kick it, and they get a seam for the touchdown. But at the same time, you look at it, the disparity in the plays. I think we ran 25 or 30 more plays than them. So we got to win those type of games.
We saw some different offensive looks as well, seeing Luke Manning come into the ball game and get a few passes in, and he looked pretty good out there with passing. Got a little wild on one of them, overthrew a receiver in the end zone. I think it was McCown in the back. Just got a little overexcited, but he looked good and also kind of physical when he started to put that ball up and tuck and run.
Luke's a good quarterback. I mean, he's a real good quarterback. I think we have 2 really good, solid young quarterbacks, 2 of the best in the league for their age right there. And with the backs being down and us limited right there, we was able to play Luke and do some 2 quarterback stuff. Coach Pardue and those guys did a great job with that, I thought. And actually our offense gave us, our game plan on everything gave us a chance to compete in the game with the limited guys we had. And so I was very proud of that. I was very proud of our guys for finishing. And now, the work goes into winning for next year, and I think we're ready to do that. We just have some things in this offseason we got to take care of.
Well, we'll give you a break. When we come back, we'll talk with athletic trainer Josh Williams here on the Perry Thomas Show.
If you love them enough to drive an hour to cheer them on as they get beat 11-0 in the rain, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Throw that ball, Diane. Woo! You got this.
Welcome back to the Perry Thomas Show. I have athletic trainer Josh Williams with me. Josh, this season has been a full season and especially a busy one. Coach Thomas has been on here talking several, especially today, about all the injuries that we've taken on. So I know that's not only just on the field for you, but it's also in the athletic training room, dealing with them, and at practices as well.
Yeah, it is. It's an everyday thing. My staff and I get in around 8 o'clock in the morning, do rehabs until about 12, kind of take some time for ourselves at that point, and then we come back in around 2, and then it's go until around 7. So they make for long days, but we try and get every kid in we can possible in the day, and you know, we strategically just play rehab Tetris from there.
So what's your, I guess, your rehab philosophy? Are you a quick fix kind of guy, or are you just the, you know, really get in and try to address that root of the problem?
Well, I think it all depends on the injury. There are a couple that you can play aggressive with, and you know, the whole throw some tape on it and see if it can go. Some of them take a lot longer. Past couple of years, we've had a lot longer term stuff that we haven't been able to be aggressive with. Me personally, I like to be aggressive. It's one of the greatest things, seeing these kids on the field doing what they love and knowing that you had a huge part in that, whether they are taped to the hilt or not. You know, I have a running joke with a couple of players in the past that if I need to duct tape you, that's my last resort, but I do have duct tape in the athletic training kit. You know, and then there are obviously the longer term rehabs, which we need to back off on and make sure that they are going back and being functionally tested before putting them back on the field and reducing that risk of injury. Each one of our staff members excels in different aspects. We have people that do manual therapy. Myself, I'm more of the functional, get after it on the field. You know, others are better in the post-surgical kind of phase, but we all bring so many different things to the table, and that's the great thing about our department is we all kind of lean on each other, and there's always an open door to ask each other, hey, what do you think of this? So, what's
been probably, I guess, the biggest struggle this season with, you know, athletic training and the injuries and everything?
As of right now, probably the injuries. We were actually doing really, really well at one point, but start of the season we saw that the schedule was, you know, bye week first week, bye week last week. So we went 10 games straight. Coach Thomas did a great job of manipulating the schedule to allow for recovery days, allowing the guys to get back on their feet on a Monday with the day off, allowing us to get on top of rehabs. So, you know, I think overall the biggest struggle this year has been the schedule and getting guys from game to game in whatever fashion we can. And then also on top of that, you know, you can't foresee the big injuries. And when those happen, how do we move around? Can the kid go? Could we get him in with someone quick and get him, you know, what he needs to be able to get to the game? Or do we have to pull a plug and say, hey, let's take a game off. Someone else can come in for your spot and we'll try and get you ready for next week. So basically, once again, playing Tetris of who goes where, and making sure that the kids are going back in the right fashion.
Now that the football season is over, what does your daily schedule look like?
A lot less. You know, yesterday I took the day to kind of get on top of some paperwork things. In the grunt and build up of the season, it's kind of hard to stay on top of those things. So now I have to back off and make sure I'm getting, you know, all the injury reports in, the rehabs in for the year, insurance stuff, and then I'll start transitioning into other sports at this point. So my other sports are cheer and dance and men's volleyball start in January. But right now cheer is about to go into their competition season. So I'll start verging over to them a little bit more. But in the same time, I now have football post-op rehabs, getting kids to doctors that we've held off on to get them through the year. Kids who are still injured that we need to get x-rays on and everything. So football never really stops. And that's one of the things I really love about it is that is the sport I love doing. It's a sport that I was basically pigeonholed into coming through undergrad and grad school. Well, not grad school, but undergrad. And in grad school, I couldn't wait to get back to it. So I do love being around football and being with the team.
With so much time put into football and then other sports as well, how does that go over in personal life? You know, just trying to split the different times, you know, making time for yourself, but also time for the team.
It's tough. It's a lot of boundaries and respecting my own boundaries, but also communicating to the players that, once I leave the office, I am not an athletic trainer anymore. Unless in the case of an emergency, then I've got to put athletic trainer hat back on and figure out what's going on. But, myself and my wife, really, my wife especially, does a really good job when I come away from athletic training, being there as a soundboard for my job, but then as soon as we're done with it, we try and be done about work. That's an adjustment I've had to make, especially with, again, being newly married, of separating job and personal life. And she does a great job at helping me with that. My parents as well, they really help me. They've always been a huge soundboard for me, especially through undergrad. Going through 4 years of basically having a part-time / full-time job where, you're working 12, 15 hours a day on top of school, you need that soundboard, and I had them there for that as well, and they've always been there for me.
I think part of most of it that people don't really realize is how much thought process goes into it outside of the office as well. Trying to think about all sorts of different training plans and like what's happening with this athlete. One of my good friends, Ryan Lee, another athletic trainer, he was my athletic trainer for a while as well. He talked about that with me quite a bit, just how much you think about your student athletes as well, even when you're out of the office.
Yeah, one of my big hobbies is getting in the weight room and getting after it. I was an athlete myself, so I've never lost that competitive nature, even if it's with myself. But, if you go on my Instagram right now and look at my feed, it's all rehab exercises, weightlifting exercises that I try and bring into the athletic training room. And I've had so many people say to me, it's the craziest exercise ever. And I'm like, oh, I got it here, but it works. It's just a different viewpoint. It's a lot of different functionality of certain things, and just making sure that I'm attacking an injury from every angle possible, because you never know what angle an athlete's going to be in on the field. So if I know that I've trained that from a weak position into a strong position, I feel better about it putting that kid back out on the field. So, yeah, absolutely. You never leave the profession, put it that way. And, they never leave your mind. They are your kids, all 200 of them, I think, close to 200 I have to my name. But they never leave your mind. What they're going through mentally, physically, how are they doing outside? Are they doing what you've told them to do outside? And wondering if they're doing that kind of thing. And wondering what you're going to deal with when you walk in on a Sunday after the game, of who's going to walk in with something that said nothing to you. So.
I know the trainers deal with a lot of the mental part too as well. I know a lot of athletes, first off, you're dealing with an athlete that's struggling, obviously. They're hurting. They're not being able to play the game that they love effectively. And then on top of that, any other pressures that they have to deal with, school, work, personal stuff. Yeah. And I know athletic trainers play a big role in that as well.
Yeah, it's amazing the relationships we build with these kids. Even today, I sat down with a kid and went over his results for some testing we did, and he wasn't excited. And my initial reaction was, well, why aren't you excited? I just asked him what's going on, and from there it was I need to go sit down with you. So, we definitely, especially with football, we have an open door policy of, if you need to take the conversation behind a closed door and just let the floodgates open, by all means. I'm not training it for sure, but I can be there for you. I can be that person. Personally, I am that for about 3 or 4 athletes. They text me and they say, hey, I need to talk to you, and I'm right there. I try and not drop what I'm doing to go and do it, but if I can drop what I'm doing and go to them and be that person, by all means. It's a big stress to be that person for someone, but not having that person to go to when I was an athlete, I see how much that helps. And also just from a mental aspect with their injuries, mentally, if they're not ready to go back to the field, I have to recognize that and say, okay, so how can I change rehab to mentally make you okay with what you have to do on the field? So yeah, there's a huge component that plays into it.
Well, thank you for all your hard work, and thanks to all the athletic trainers for their hard work. And thank you for sitting down with us. When we come back, we'll be with head coach Perry Thomas as we recap this final season and look forward to the next one here on the Perry Thomas Show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome back Coach Thomas to the hot seat. Coach Thomas, football season is done. It's over. You're 2-8. You started out with 2 big wins, but tough conference play and tough games, tough injuries lead you to an 8-game losing streak, 2-8. But you were right there in a lot of those battles. Only a few games were really out of hand. You were right there with Lindsey Wilson. You were right there with Bethel. You were right there with Cumberland's. Right. And all in all, a pretty decent season.
Yeah, decent. Well, you know, and the thing about it is I'm proud of our guys for finishing. I'm proud of our guys for understanding that we've, you know, we had to make strides over last year. And across the board, we did. It doesn't always show on the scoreboard, but when you look at our statistics and the way we played the games and so forth, we made great strides. But now we have to get to winning, right? We've built it back up. We have the numbers now. These young guys are going to be a year older next year, so that means instead of playing with mostly freshmen, sophomores, we're going to be playing with sophomores, juniors, and more seniors. And now it's time to win. So we have to take the lessons we learned this past offseason that made us better this year, and also the lessons we learned while we couldn't get over that hump in X games, right? And take that into the offseason and just get better and put it with some strong recruiting, some strong retention. And, you know, next year we need to win. And we got spoiled. We got used to winning. You know, we got used to winning championships and being in that. And these last 3 or 4 years have not been to our standard. So, you know, what we had to build it back. I feel like we've done that now. Now we got to get over that next hurdle, and that's to win. And I think these guys are ready for that.
So you'll be in your 16th season as the head coach here at Campbellsville. What lessons from these past few years, always seem like you learn a little bit more in the hard times. What of the lessons that you've learned in these past few years do you take into the 16th season?
Well, I mean, the big thing is that we have to be able to keep the guys we need in the program. You know, the success those early years was part of it. We could keep the guys we needed and add to with the recruiting. And the last few years, a couple of years ago, we couldn't keep those guys. You know, we had COVID and everything else going on. Last year, we kept them, and that's why we were so much better this year. And the big lesson for us is we got to keep those guys again. We got to keep those mainstays in the program, so they are juniors and seniors now, and we got to continue to recruit our butts off. But we also got to have another great off season. One of the reasons we got better from last year to this year was we had an off season. You know, we didn't get off season for about 3 years there, and we had off season, and we got to have another great off season. I think we're poised and ready to win now. I think we're in position for that. But all of our patience are running thin on it because we did get spoiled with winning, and we have to get back to it. So I'm excited about the offseason. I'm excited about recruiting that's going on. I'm excited about the meetings we're having right now with the players and recognizing who's going to make it back and who's not. And I'm excited about getting this offseason going and getting that grind so come next August, we're ready to win.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What is this end of season, these few weeks here right at the end, what does that look like? What are the processes that you all go through?
Yeah, so right now we're going exit interviews with our guys, talking to them about goal setting for them individually. Really, it's not a lot of team talk going on with that. I'll have a team meeting where I'll talk to the guys about the team stuff, but we're individually talking to guys, trying to see where their head's at. You know, or what you're doing in the classroom, what's your goals, are you going to make it back, are you looking to leave, that type of deal. And we'll continue our weights 3 days a week. We'll continue our weight program 3 days a week in our study halls. And we'll do some team activities, you know, some Christmas stuff and some bonding stuff and some community service stuff over these next, I think, 3 or 4 weeks that we have before Christmas. And the staff will be out recruiting a lot and also getting ready for setting up our January program for when we return.
So what does the off season look like? We talked a lot about how you can improve in the off season. What do you mainly work on during those times?
Yeah, so in the off season you work on leadership and togetherness. So you do a lot of off-season togetherness activities, whether it's community service or just team function activities. Also, a lot of leadership programs, led by me and other staff members and community guys and so forth, talking about stepping up, being leaders and being men of character and responsibility. But you're also going to grind in that weight room. In that weight room, it's already tough, but it goes to another level. The expectations, the toughness of the weight room goes to another level, and the off-season program. So a lot of conditioning, skill development without the football, just skill development, working on individually and team-wise. As a staff, we work on our systems. We look at our players and we're like, all right, Collin needs to go here, Perry needs to go there, and so forth. And we put our system together based on what we have returning. Not necessarily based on your recruiting, because you don't know you're going to get those guys yet. And then, at some point we'll go into spring ball to test what we've done and to test the changes and the growth, and then get ready for the summer program. So it's very detailed. People often ask, Coach, are you happy the season's over because you won't be as busy? Well, we're just as busy. Mm-hmm. It's just a little different. You don't have that 3.5-hour game on Saturday, but you're still pretty busy, and the players are busy, and that's not including the recruiting part, where you're on the road a lot and visiting and so forth.
So does the recruiting step up a touch in the amount that you all travel to go? And what does that look like, I guess I should say, now that high school football kind of comes to an end and you have to go out and recruit? You can't really go and meet them at the games or watch them play at the games. Yeah. How does that look for you?
Well, it just changes when you can talk to them. So, in the high school, when during the season, you'll visit them during the school some, but we're busy during the day with practice and so forth, so you mostly catch them at a game. After the season's over, now you're in the schools. Mm-hmm. So now you're in the schools, or you're at family functions. You may go to Lexington and go out to eat with a family, or go to the home and eat dinner, or you may go to the school and visit. So it's it steps up from the standpoint you're probably on the road a little bit more. During the season, you're mostly on the road on Friday evenings. But during the week and off season, you could be on the road 4 or 5 days a week, going various places to talk to guys. And then there'll be a lot to come into the campus. And so during the season, they're coming in on Saturdays, game days, because they have practice in the afternoon. During the off season, they're going to come in during a regular day, take a college day visit from school, and come in during a regular day and be able to, which I like better than the Saturdays, because now they get to experience the college day. And they get to see what the college life is about with students on campus going to classes and so forth.
So what's the pitch for a recruit or a prospective football player or a student coming in next season? What's the pitch for this next season?
Well, I think you just focus on the 3 things we focus on. We're going to build men of character. So we're going to talk a great deal to them about that and how we do those things and what we're doing in our program, and understanding that they have a role in that. We have men that we want to get that degree, and that's our second focus. He's graduating them. So we focus a great deal on, what the campus offers for that, what's available to them to help them advance, tutoring and so forth, the BAS, the Learning Commons, that type of deal. But also, once again, their role in that. And then the third thing we focus on is winning the national title. We don't talk much about winning Mid-South Conference. We don't talk about beating other opponents. We don't even talk about the fact that these last few years we've been down a little bit and what we got to do to get there. We talk about winning the national title, because if that's the focus, then you should always be doing these other things it's going to take to get you there. And so once again, we talk about what we're doing for that, what the campus role is in that, and what your role is in that, plays in that. And that's the 3 things we basically talk about right there. And, all of that covers everything that our beautiful campus offers with being a Christian atmosphere, and it covers all the things that we feel like we need to do to get to that next level. The focus can't be on us growing. The focus can't be on, the hard times we've had. The focus can't be on the multiple championships we've had and so forth. The focus has to be on those 3 things that takes care of everything in our program. What's best for the student, what's as a man, what's best for the student as a student, and what's best for our program to win national titles.
Well, thank you, Coach, and thank you for joining me all season long. I appreciate you taking the time to come out and sit down and talk with us and Tiger Nation as well. I'd also like to thank you all for tuning in this season. Be sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube page, CU Sports Network. You can see all things Tiger athletics, especially as we move into basketball season, Tiger Timeout, and Inside CU Sports as well. So that'll do it for this season of the Perry Thomas Show. Thank you for tuning in.